Hello, world. Brian here again. Happy Sabbath, and as it turns out, Happy New Year as well. Today is January 1st, the new year of 2022. We've come this far, so far. Anyway, what I would like to say here is welcome to my ministry to begin with. Always remember God in your life. Keep giving Him the glory in everything that we do. Keep Him in our thoughts and right where He belongs in our hearts, our minds, and our souls. So, right now, I want to go into this week's topic, which is actually going to be about New Year's and New Year's celebrations, New Year's Eve, that sort of thing. I will come back to the commandments, the Ten Commandments, next week and start going back into the third commandment, breaking that down. So, it's kind of funny because I really initially thought that this week's message would actually be relatively short. And I'm going to try to still kind of keep it that way, but there's so much more to this topic. It's amazing. And Christmas and New Year's kind of tie in together when it comes to the Bible, the traditions of men, and that sort of thing. So I initially couldn't really see how ringing in the New Year could really be a big deal, depending on how you do it, of course. But after some study, I found out that I was really pretty wrong on that account. I mean, what could really be wrong with something as simple as sitting in front of your TV with your family and watching the last 10 seconds before the ball drops in New York, that kind of thing. I understand that some people, they're going to party themselves into oblivion, basically, and on New Year's Eve night, and some even really get involved in some crazy things while totally intoxicated and that type of thing. Well, this, of course, that kind of celebration is not a good thing, not by any standard. I mean, you just, when you get that intoxicated, you don't know what's going to happen or what's going to happen to you or anyone around you for that matter. So here's the thing, though, according to the Bible, God is not good with anything that is pagan. And, ringing in the new year is originally and historically pagan in nature. So there's no biblical scripture that supports or even talks about celebrating or commemorating the new year specifically. Getting into some of the history of it, the earliest known record of any New Year celebration or festival actually dates back to around 2000 BC in Mesopotamia. It was called Akitu and started at the new moon after the spring equinox around mid-March. In Assyria, around that same time frame, it was celebrated in mid-September near the autumn equinox. For the most part, ancient people would celebrate their new year wherever it happened to be or whichever people it happened to be, near the times of the spring or autumn equinoxes or the summer or winter solstices. This celebration would typically include a lot of revelry and various pagan rituals. Sorry about that. The Celtic people celebrated the New Year on November 1st, which for them actually marked the end of summer and harvest time and the beginning of winter and the dark days and snowy days and cold days ahead. This was actually, being on November 1st, it was actually ended up being a precursor to Halloween for them, where they would actually build bonfires to scare off evil spirits and honor their sun god, and would also wear masks. The purpose of that would be to hide themselves from evil spirits so they wouldn't be recognized. The Romans, on the other hand, gave gifts of branches from sacred trees that later kind of morphed into this giving of gold-covered nuts or coins with their god Janus imprinted on them. Janus was the god of gates, doors, and beginnings, and the month of January was actually named after this particular Roman god. The old Roman Republican calendar had the New Year beginning on March 1st. But after the year 153 BC, it was actually officially changed to January 1st, and then actually went through, throughout Europe and throughout the world, went through different times where the New Year would start on different dates. And then later on, like today, now today we go by the Gregorian calendar, and it's it's January 1st is the new year. So at one time, the Anglo-Saxons of England, this one I found rather interesting, actually celebrated New Year's Day on December 25th, which obviously we could not do today because it would coincide as the same date as Christmas. So anyway, that got changed around, and there's history behind that as well as to how and why all that occurred and how that got corrected and that sort of thing. So actually, as I was having a look back at all these things and the history of it and everything, of New Year's celebrations and that sort of thing, the more I looked back into the history of New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, I found out really how deeply rooted it is in paganism and pagan tradition, actually originating from pagan idol-worshipping men, and over the centuries became part of Christian annual tradition as well. It's taken a lot of time to get to that, but now it's pretty much widely accepted as a harmless celebration, just ringing in the new year. But how harmless is it really? What does the Bible have to say about it? Well, nothing directly about the specific holiday, but we can start looking back by looking back at last week's topic on Christmas. And it doesn't take long. I mean, you can find a lot of verse in the Bible about what it says about this type of thing, basically dealing with man-made holidays as opposed to the ones given to us by God. God does not approve of paganism, period. He just doesn't. Paganism includes the worship of things that are not God, so that's not okay. If we look back at on the Old Testament, Jeremiah 10 verses 2 and 3, we find that it states, "Learn not the way of the heathen, for the customs of the people are vain." So, what exactly is the heathen? Well, it's the same thing as the pagan. What we call the pagan, the Bible calls the heathen. These are basically people who worship nature, the sun, the moon, the stars, trees, etc. Any man-made idols, images or statuettes or whatever, statues created by human hands, and basically bowing down and worshiping anything other than the one true living God. It was not acceptable to him for the Jewish people to do that, for the Israelites to do that, when they created the golden calf out in the desert after Moses went up to get the Ten Commandments and whatnot. It wasn't okay with him then. A lot of people died because of it. He was not okay with them having this golden calf and worshiping it, even though it was an effigy of himself, of him. He wasn't okay with that. That's not meant to be. So I guess really what it comes down to is whether you're partying your brains out or just sitting in front of your TV with the fam, watching the ball drop in New York, you need to think of the history of this tradition and what it really means. Even though sitting in front of your TV watching the ball drop might seem harmless, it's still rooted. You go back and you look at the roots and the history of it, it's still rooted in paganism. So the only thing I can suggest is do your own research, because there is really so much more to this topic than I've come close to even. I haven't even scratched the surface here, really. I'm just kind of throwing a few things out there, and hopefully you'll pick up the ball and run with it. It's really been a long, slow process of Christian acceptance for certain pagan customs and traditions. These are things that never should have happened, but they have over time. These things really need to be studied and removed from our acceptance. They need to be unaccepted and done away with, because it's not okay. Because according to the Bible, God is not okay with these things. He's not okay with these man-made traditions. I think, if you're really and truly Christian, the origins of these traditions should really be much more closely studied And then you can, after that, you determine for yourself whether you really want to continue pursuing them or not. But because that's really the bottom line. We need to do our own research, our own study, and then determine for ourselves what direction do we want to take from there. And that's really the bottom line. So, everything that I'm putting out here is hopefully just to make people think that there is more to things than meet the eye. And it's worth looking into deeper. So anyway, we really need to stop and consider what God wants from us. Maybe, if we're really fortunate, it's not too late to turn things around and return to God's good graces. So anyway, that concludes today's topic. So it was relatively short compared to some of the others. I would like to mention in closing that I should say again in closing that I've included a link to a PayPal page where if the Spirit moves you, you can donate whatever amount you like. Every little bit does help. If not, that's okay too. Please like, share, follow, and subscribe on YouTube so that you'll be notified when I post new videos. Sharing, I think, being the most important of these. When you share these messages, others might get value from them as well. The important thing being here that the messages themselves, the stuff these videos that I'm putting out, I will never try to guilt you into giving money or anything for this. I mean, this is something, if you choose to, it'll be very, very much appreciated. But if not, I would appreciate it if you do share, subscribe, and do those things. But the bottom line here is that the message itself is always going to be free. It's not, there's no charge for this. And that's as it should be and as God intended it to be. His message is free to everyone. My goal is simply to help those who might not otherwise find Him to hopefully find their way to God and at least begin their own search for Him in their own heart. So the next episode, I will be returning to the Ten Commandments and beginning a breakdown of the third commandment, the second commandment in the Catholic version. I will give you my thoughts on the third commandment, the next episode, which will be episode 11. So until then, be safe, be kind to others, love your family and your friends, and those close to you. Love God and love His only begotten Son, Jesus Christ. Talk to God through Jesus Christ in prayer regularly. And while you're praying for yourself and your loved ones, remember to say something good for those who are less fortunate. And remember, prayer doesn't have to be like an all-day thing. I mean, a couple of times a day, maybe, 5-10 minutes in the morning and another 5-10 minutes at night. To talk to God in prayer is not something that I don't think He ever intended it to consume your entire life, just being in prayer all the time. I think we have things that we need to do. We are working people. It's what we do. We spend time doing other things. But He does expect you to talk to Him. He does expect you to include Him in your life. And there's certainly nothing at all wrong with that. So, being our Creator, He should be able to have that expectation of us. Anyway, thanks for watching, and have an absolutely splendid day. Take care. Bye-bye.